We were saying that almost in coded language, you can't let Trump prevail here. It's just too historically important. If we don't stop this guy, this has, as everybody knows, global implications. Within the Democratic Party, there's a struggle for the direction the party goes. And it's really been working in our favor.
I'm with Charlie Cray in the Greenpeace office in Washington, D.C. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you very much. I'd like to talk to you about the role that Greenpeace and others like Greenpeace have been playing in American politics. You have a democracy campaign.
We have a democracy campaign. In fact, well, our executive director around, I want to say 2014, was having a series of meetings with leaders from the civil rights movement, labor, and other environmental groups. And, we all realize that we're not getting anything done in Washington, D.C. because of a whole range of things like voter suppression and the dominance of corporate money in politics. And so we decided that if campaign finance wasn't your first issue, it should be your second issue.
Right.
We'd hived these questions off to a sector of the progressive movement and said, those groups that are experts in that take care of it. That's not the wrong way to go about it if we're going to get anything done in this country. So one of the first things that was done was the creation of the Democracy Initiative.
So you're interested in empowering voters, would you say?
Empowering voters and empowering anyone to run as a candidate so that you don't have to spend all your time dialing for dollars. You can dial your constituents and talk to them and craft an agenda that represents what they need.
Right.
We're starting to do more electoral, get out the vote type work, getting people involved in very targeted campaigns where there's a real distinction between one candidate and another, particularly with respect to their position on climate change.
How do you relate to other organizations, Sunrise, is it, or Our Revolution, or these other sort of organizations which have still got a very considerable scale?
After Sunrise really put the Green New Deal on the table, the challenge was to translate that into real legislation.
Right.
And there are many groups that are excellent at policy, that have worked the Hill, et cetera, that provide that element of it. They're progressive think tank groups, and then there's sort of a grassroots organizing element to the movement like Sunrise.
And is it true to say that you really came together during the last election? I mean, effectively to try and generate a coalition against Trump?
Yeah, there was kind of an emergency, all hands on deck feel. And so that meant, and this was also after, the summer of resistance. So there was a lot of understanding that, for instance, there needed to be a lot of support for black-led organizations because voter suppression hits those communities first and worst. So there were different coalition efforts to get ready for the election. We knew that there would be an attempt to do all sorts of hijinks in the election. So there were a couple of coalitions that formed. There were about 12 states where there was on the ground, very intensive organizing. So you had these state-level coalitions that did scenario analysis and planning. We're looking at...
Had you known anything like this before on this scale?
I don't think there had been. I think that was historically unprecedented.
And did it change you, how you felt about that experience?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we were in a real existential crisis. And I think to the degree that we were getting out of our own lane and understanding everybody's got to work together.
Right.
If we don't stop this guy, this has, as everybody knows, global implications. Are we going to have authoritarianism dominate the entire planet, region to region? The United States was not only...
And climate denial as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pathological climate denial. I mean, it's not just this sort of public relations run Trump group denial like the Kochs and Exxons of the world had run. I mean, this is real pathological stuff that we were dealing with.
So what is your relationship with the Democratic Party? I mean, do you feel a new kind of politics is emerging here?
Yes, definitely. Within the Democratic Party, there's a struggle for the direction the party goes. And and it's really been working in our favor. There are more and more members of the Progressive Caucus. They're getting smarter about their strategies. They're getting more support from our communities. We have coalition conversations with Progressive Caucus staff in those conversations, so there's better coordination to run an agenda, right?
Right.
We're not quite there yet, right? We don't have the power. That's where the
Right.
electoral
So
part.
you're not part of the Democratic Party as
No.
such, but you're part of that democratic politics.
We did a little bit of, we had a little bit of a quiet conversation with some more centrist types. There were a lot of conversations with people connected to the business community who really understand, I believe, the risks to their self-interest here. Many of them. I'm not saying all. The business community is very divided.
Because of climate and the environment and so on.
Climate,
Yeah.
but also authoritarianism.
Right.
I mean, the reputation of American businesses abroad. What does that do to that? The stability of markets.
So you were talking to them about, so to speak, a better kind of capitalism, a more democratic capitalism?
We weren't talking on ideological levels. We were saying that, almost in coded language, you can't let Trump prevail here. It's just too historically important. Now that was in 2020. They kind of receded afterwards. There were types of business coalitions because the Republican Party started driving these voter suppression bills state after state after the election. That was their response, right?
Yeah.
There were businesses led by particularly black business leaders, the Black Economic Alliance, that ran some ads in the Wall Street Journal and the Times saying that we stand for democracy. We want to see more of that, right? They're getting attacked by the Mitch McConnell's on the other side as stay in your lane, don't be woke corporations, right? Well, there's really no separation between these risks, and their employees are really quite concerned, and they really have to respond to their employees too. So there's brand reputation and all the rest. So I think the business community is one piece of our democracy campaign that we want to develop further.
So you're seeing a new kind of politics emerging in terms of who you're organizing and the way you're doing that.
Yes.
Are you working in other branches of Greenpeace around the world or other?
At times, and there are a lot of movement organizers who have real grassroots, like global justice movement organizers, people who came out of the fights of the global justice movement against the WTO and the IMF and all that, who have connections with the South, who have learned, some of these things already. When I talk with colleagues who are from the Philippines who remind me of the Marcos era and the lessons of the existential threats
very
there.
Right.
We are very naive about authoritarianism, we Americans, and we need to learn from the experiences of other countries.